Welcome back to the Tempo Storm deck introduction series featuring Big Even Recruit Warrior, the wacky new warrior deck featuring Gen Greymane. Big Even Recruit Warrior is a deck that was recently created by Jambre, a professional Hearthstone player from the UK. Jambre is known for his deck creations from previous metas such as UK Paladin and Recruit Shaman. While refining this deck, Jambre piloted it to Legend on the 7th of May with an over 60% win rate. This deck navigates through early game similarly to our newly featured Odd Fatigue Warrior, as it attempts to stay alive into the later turn so that it can dominate the late game. In this case, we have a more aggressive late game strategy by recruiting out large minions. The deck is very reminiscent to Big Priest from the previous meta, as it's played in a similar fashion. Even Recruit Warrior is a new deck, and thus hasn't seen any tournament play yet, but it is likely to be seen from at least a few players at DreamHack Austin or other following tour stops. Without further ado, let's get right into the deck breakdown. Big Even Recruit Warrior is a control deck with a game plan. Stall the game out until you can cheat the mana curve with your large, game-ending threats. This warrior list features all of the typical even-costed warrior removal cards. Slam is used as a good source of early damage toward minions, and it also has the upside of drawing us cards. Execute, being nerfed to 2 mana years ago, was a hidden blessing for this deck, as we now have hard removal that we can couple with damage-dealing cards. Warpath is essentially our replacement for Whirlwind. It acts as an activator for Execute and will also clear up boards of smaller minions in the mid-game. The flexibility and applications of this card more than make up for not having Brawl against aggro board-flooding decks. Forge of Souls is a powerful card in this deck, as it can pull out early weapons as well as our Woe Cleaver. The early game weapons that this deck plays are Bladed Gauntlet and Blood Razor. Bladed Gauntlet is a tool in this deck that has great synergy with our 1-mana hero power. Blood Razor is also very strong, as the Whirlwind effect gives us a strong removal against flood decks like even Paladin, and a free activator for Execute in the later turns. Unidentified Shield acts as a life gain that can serve several different purposes depending on what shield we find ourselves equipping. Whether we use it as a weapon, to deal damage, summon a minion, or gain an extra 10 health, every shield will find use in this deck. The Warrior Death Knight Scourge Lord Garrosh also finds a place in this deck, as its weapon and hero power serve as great control tools. Bring It On plays so many roles in this deck, acting as life gain as well as having synergy with Bladed Gauntlet and Geosculptor Yip. As we get to the mid-game, we'll be looking to draw into our recruit cards. Gather Your Party and Woe Cleaver both allow you to bypass the mana curve to summon large minions from our deck earlier than intended. Woe Cleaver also has the aforementioned benefit of being drawn from Forge of Souls, which gives us a very high chance of drawing it by turn 8. Gem-Studded Golem is the first minion that our deck tries to recruit. The large taunt minion has a very strong body, and activating it is easy to achieve with our 1-mana hero power. Geosculptor Yip is a very good card to recruit because of its synergy with our hero power and armor gain spells. In fact, with an equipped Woe Cleaver, a Geosculptor Yip on the board, and high enough armor, we can summon 3 large threats in 1 turn. Grommash Hellscream is another minion with incredible power. Due to recruiting it for cheaper mana than it's played for, we can often enrage it the turn we summon him. Gen Greymane is a card we definitely don't want to draw or summon, but we run it solely for its effects on our hero power. Gen Greymane is effectively the patches of this deck. Charged Devilsar is one of our better minions to recruit, because it can actually hit face, acting as a surprise burst. Primordial Drake is a powerful anti-aggro tool when played naturally, and also has a durable enough body to contest the board if we recruit it. Finally, Lich King is one of the most powerful minions in our deck that benefits immensely from being cheated out, as we can gain value from its effect even earlier in the game. According to our standard guru Luker, Even Recruit Warrior is strong due to the slower warrior's ability to manage the combination of control tools and late-game threats. Most decks that focus on controlling the board lack large minions as win conditions, which makes this a fun deck to play. One thing that's important to note, though, is that you never want to keep minions in your mulligan, as your game plan is recruiting them from your deck. In every matchup, aim to keep Bladed Gauntlet, as it works well with your hero power. Another card you should keep in every matchup is Forge of Souls, as it allows you to find Bladed Gauntlet and your other key weapons from your deck. Drawing 2 cards for 2 mana represents immense value in Hearthstone, and should be used when possible. Against aggro decks, look for your removal so you can survive the early turns. Typically, your game plan against these decks is running them out of resources and then slowly building a board to lock them out of the game. The exception to this is when you're facing Tempo Mage, as your game plan here is to remove the early boards of minions and then steadily gain armor each turn to survive the onslaught of burn spells. If you know your opponent is Secret Mage and your other 1 or 2 cards are proactive enough, you can consider keeping Bring It On or Unidentified Shield in your hand. Against slower decks, you really want to be looking for Gather Your Party as well as the aforementioned cards. As Shadow Essence can tell you, a 6-mana recruit is very powerful, especially if you're hitting your Lich King. However, we not only get to thin out our deck for more responses, but we also get to keep the stats of whatever minions we summon. In matchups like Control Priest or Taunt Druid, you can also keep Woe Cleaver as the power level of the card is strong enough to guarantee having later in the game. Be sure to play around removal from control decks by trying to limit the amount of minions you have on the board at once, unless you're facing Druid, as they don't have anything to deal with multiple big threats. One of the most important things you can do against aggro decks is being aware of their power turns. In order to effectively use your removal spells, you need to know what you're playing around. For example, against Paladin, you want to be hesitant of their turn 4, and be very scared of leaving up large boards going into turn 6 and onwards. Due to the limitations this deck faces when deck building, such as being able to play only even-costed cards and having to be cautious of what minions we run due to recruit mechanics, there really aren't many tech choices available to us. For now, Even Recruit Warrior represents a strong but inflexible archetype, making it brittle and situationally good on the latter. The population of token-based aggro decks and anti-Q block burst decks for now are 2 of the reasons for the deck's rising success. The only real tech choice we can make is adding in a Dead Man's Hand if we're facing off against a large amount of control decks. Dead Man's Hand helps us win fatigue situations and can give us more threats if we draw too many of our minions. Whether or not Big Even Recruit Warrior will become a top-tier deck remains to be unknown, but the deck is definitely a very nice change of pace. After the nerfs, the deck is expected to perform better than ever and may even skyrocket into a very strong position in the meta, seeing new tech options and more aggressive strategies. For now, Big Even Recruit Warrior is more likely a fun deck to experiment with, that will probably see some competitive play while the meta remains consistent. We hope you enjoyed our guide on Jambre's Big Even Recruit Warrior. If you have any decks you'd like us to cover, be sure to suggest it in the comments, and be sure to check out our other Tempo Storm content. Thank you for watching, and until next time.